obviously growing up in South Africa, you watched English football, and my dream was to always play in England. So I probably bounced from club to club because I was constantly looking for that next big thing. My dream was to get to England, and I was trying to find a route there. Obviously, I had opportunity in Man United, and I couldn't get a work permit. Then again at 23 to Fulham, I couldn't get a work permit again. So I was constantly bouncing around Europe looking for the opportunity to get back into England and to sort of qualify for that permit. As a footballer, you had your manager or coach telling you your role on the field and what you had to do. And your only role as a footballer was to sort of maintain your eating and how well you ate and slept and to make sure you did the job on the field. As a coach, you're now running the club. I realized that helping people sort of achieve goals physically and mentally, it was a nice change up from scoring goals in front of 20, 30, 40,000 people. It was a different kind of high.
Hello, Africa. You're listening to 1000 African Voices. I'm your host, Aburengwi C, coming to you from our Johannesburg studios. 1000 African Voices is a program that profiles Africans of diverse cultures who have traveled and lived across the African continent and the world. In this series, we will collect and share stories from all parts of Africa. Welcome.
1000 African Voices.
Hello, Africa, and welcome to yet another episode of 1000 African Voices. Today we're joined by Mr. Ryan Botha, who will shortly introduce himself to the listeners of 1000 African Voices. Hello, Ryan.
Hi, how are you?
Doing really well, Ryan. How are you?
Great, thanks. Just finishing work, got home now. It's been a long day. It's nice being on the phone to have a chat.
Oh, no, lovely. Thank you for joining us. Ryan, maybe just before we get started, when you asked about who you are, how do you normally respond to that question?
It's a very good question because I've had so many sort of introductions. But basically, my name is Ryan Botha. I'm an ex-professional footballer. I played in South Africa for 7 years and overseas for 7 years. And now I'm a gym owner. So while doing my coaching license. So, yeah.
Okay. Did you say you're busy with your coaching license?
Yes, for soccer. So I've just done my international C level through Scotland. I've got a couple more levels to go through before I can coach professionally anywhere in the world.
Oh, lovely. Where do you want to go with that? I watch a lot of football, and being a football manager or coach seems like such a stressful job. Why would you want to do that yourself?
It is stressful. Obviously, you, as a footballer, you had your manager or coach telling you your role on the field and what you had to do. And your only role as a footballer was to sort of maintain your eating and how well you ate and slept and to make sure you did the job on the field. As a coach, you're now running the club with regards to the players, who's in, who's out, formations. So it's a lot more stressful. But it's natural progression for a guy like me as an ex-footballer who loves the game and still has a lot to give back to the game, to get back into the game that you love so much and starting off at grassroots level and working towards professional ranks.
Lovely. I've been on the ryanbotha.com website all week preparing for this interview, but what I really like is your bio. And what I like about the bio is the number of times you've moved clubs. So I wanted that to be at least one of the questions I ask.
Sure.
Can you take us through your footballing career, starting from, I suppose, going to Manchester United all the way to Thanda Zulu Royals?
Yeah, obviously growing up in South Africa, you watched English football, and my dream was to always play in England. So I probably bounced from club to club because I was constantly looking for that next big thing. My dream was to get to England, and I was trying to find a route there. Obviously, I had opportunity in Man United, and I couldn't get a work permit. Then again at 23 to Fulham, I couldn't get a work permit again. So I was constantly bouncing around Europe looking for the opportunity to get back into England and to sort of qualify for that permit. through enough international games for my country. So if I had to look back, they always ask that question, in hindsight, what would you have changed? I probably would have, there were one or two clubs which I thoroughly enjoyed my football at, and I played great football. And in hindsight, I probably would have stayed there for a lot longer in my career and settled down a bit more and sort of stopped chasing that dream. Because being a South African, it's quite difficult to get to England. And I feel like I possibly sort of missed 5 or 6 great years at one or two clubs that I was at, So I did bounce from club to club because my agents would move me around trying to get me that big move to England. And unfortunately, it was difficult for me to get that move and qualify for a permit.
Maybe before all of that, so you got to high school. I assume you liked football quite a lot in high school. Then at some point you must have decided that what you wanted to do with your life was to play football. Why that? What is the fascination for you with football?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm from Durban originally. I went to a school called Glenwood High School. Obviously there, the primary sport was rugby and then it filtered to cricket. But, Glenwood was great because I played first team rugby. I played first team cricket. I played SA baseball. I was a sportsman of all sorts. And because I played so much for the school, they sort of made soccer a recognized sport at the school. Soccer and rugby were my first and second love, respectively. I did have a prospect of looking at professional rugby, but soccer sort of fell on my lap first, and it was something that I was really, really good at. The contract got offered my way first via soccer, and my love for the game just, pulled me in that direction. So I sort of stuck to my guns, and I knew quite young I wanted to be a professional footballer. And going to Man United at 17 was sort of confirmation for me that this is my dream and this is where I want to go. Seeing these big boys like David Beckham and Ryan Giggs walking around you at the training ground was sort of a nail in the coffin of where I wanted to go. So coming back to South Africa, I signed for Supersport at 18. And then I was in South Africa for a year and a half and I moved to Europe at 20.
How was it, living home at such a young age? I assume you sort of found yourself on your own when you went to Finland. How was that experience and how do you think it has shaped today's Ryan Botha?
I think it was a fantastic experience. I think as South Africans, we stay at home for quite long. It's not strange to see in South Africa kids living with their parents till 25, 26, 27. Leaving home at 18, moving to Johannesburg and eventually to Finland at the age of 20, it definitely forced me to grow up and it helped me see the world and different cultures around the world. I got to respect life more. You can be quite sheltered living in one country your entire life, but traveling at a young age and fending for yourself and having to be an adult at such a young age, it definitely sort of propelled me into a much more adult role younger. And I obviously then had to fend for yourself. It was all about you. It was on your chin. If you make mistakes, it's your mistake. You can't turn to your parents. So if I look back today, I've had a lot of trials and tribulations through my life. I almost lost my right leg helping someone out, my left leg, helping someone out 3 years ago. I damaged my knee quite badly playing football in Turkey when I was 24 and I was told I would never play again. But having left quite young, it gave me a very strong backbone and a self-belief to fight for what I wanted. So, I did bounce back from my knee injury and I played another 8 years professionally. My left leg's still intact and I'm walking today when I was told I wouldn't walk again. So it definitely made me a much stronger character.
I must say, when I go through sort of what you've been through, whether it's on your website or news articles, both, I suppose, spiritually and physically, it sounds like you've gone through quite a bit, which in theory should then translate to you being stronger now than you've ever been. At what age did you stop playing? I know you now, I think about 38. At what point did you stop playing?
I stopped playing 31, 32. I was quite young. I probably had 4 or 5 years left in me. Coming back to South Africa, I got quite frustrated with sort of certain things within South African soccer. So I stepped back quite young and I started deciding what's next for myself. Now, stepping back from football at 31, 32, you're still too young to be a professional coach because it's very difficult going to coach players older than you with more experience than you. Any sport, especially soccer, you got to work through your ranks. You got to start at the bottom and you got to, as a footballer, work through those ranks, polish boots, move balls, carry goals. And at the end of your career, when you're old enough, you're sort of at the top of the game. Now, for me to coach players who have been playing as long as I was, 14, 15, 16 years professionally, it's difficult. So I was sort of 31, 32, left the game, and then I was deciding what's next.
And what was next? At 32, you've known just football for 15 years. What was next for you?
I've been very fortunate because when I've hit a wall, something's always fallen in my lap and sort of given me direction and given me a sort of a path and where I was going to go. So At that age, I'd retired. I moved to Cape Town. I needed a change. I'd bought an apartment here, sort of an investment for myself post-football. And I got asked by a couple of people to train them, to get them fit and to help them lose weight. And I remember saying to them, I'm not a personal trainer. But being a footballer, they really asked me, please, fitness. I started training one or two people I knew, and they started dropping a lot of weight, and I started getting more requests to train people. And, I wasn't qualified as a PT. So I realized that helping people sort of achieve goals physically and mentally, it was a nice sort of a change up from scoring goals in front of 20, 30, 40,000 people. It was a different kind of high. I decided, well, this is my path. So I studied my PT levels. I spoke to a mate of mine, also ex-professional footballer, Neil Stanley in Johannesburg, and we opened a gym called PointBreak together in Cape Town.
Okay, and I take it today that is what you do, PointBreak in Cape Town. Is that your main or primary activity?
It is. It's my primary. I would say it's the majority of sort of what I do at the moment. Obviously I model on the side as well. It's not something I enjoy a lot, but it can be fun. You get to shoot some cool things. You get to experience some different things in life. And while I'm doing all that, I'm studying, like I said, to professional coach, football coach.
I suppose in a way you have a moral obligation to do the modeling on the side. And the reason I say that is I watched a couple of videos. There was one video in particular with Carol Manana describing you as the David Beckham of South Africa. And there were a couple of ladies on that video who seemed to really like that side of you. So I thought I'll just ask you how you feel about that, being labeled the David Beckham of South Africa.
It's such a funny story. Like I said, I met Beckham when I was 17, and then obviously playing in Europe, I seemed to get labelled wherever I played, the South African David Beckham. And when I came back to South Africa after being abroad for 7 years, I was like, yes, that label's going to leave me behind, thankfully. And it didn't. It followed me to South Africa. And, in South Africa, it didn't fend so well for me, because a lot of the coaches didn't like the fact that I modeled on the side. They thought it took away from my soccer. No matter how much I would never miss football for modeling. Modeling was a sideline thing. Unfortunately, it took away from my football with coaches in South Africa, which is one of the reasons in the end I walked away, because it was just a very, very frustrating process for me.
The soccer accolades that you've received, you were voted the Player of the Month in 2002. You scored 10 goals, 6 assists in 24 games, it's quite a healthy return. But when I read up, the awards that seem to come up are non-soccer related. And by that now I'm referring to the likes of being one of the GQ top 10 best dressed men, the Flash top 5 hottest footballers. So that side of you seems to have overtaken the footballing side. Is that a fair statement?
It really did. And like I said to you, I was a footballer first and foremost. And if I had to be honest with you in my career, yes, take away the injuries and everything else I had, which is unfortunate, I didn't achieve what I felt I could have achieved in soccer. Yes, my injuries sort of prohibited that.
Maybe, Ryan, just to go back to the coaching bit, having played in both South Africa and Europe, so I watch a lot of football. Unfortunately, I suppose in 2019, a diehard Arsenal fan. But I always wonder what the differences are between, say, English football and South African football. So as someone who has played both in continental Europe and Africa, I think you're the right person to ask, what in your view are the differences between our type of football and the English style or European style of football?
For me, the differences are purely football related. South African players are unbelievably talented and skillful. It's just the development grassroots. That's why I say it's football related. In Europe, the grassroots football is structured. The approach to the game is the same all the way through the ranks. Whereas in South Africa, it's more of a free flow football. The players aren't taught to correct first touch, how to receive the ball, how to be clinical in the front of the goals. And that's where we lack on international level. We're not clinical enough in certain areas. Yes, keep our Shabobo style. I think it's amazing. The guys play this disky football. It's incredible, and it's definitely an attribute and a strength to keep our South African flair. But we do need that European structure as well. And that's the only difference that we do lack.
I then wonder how it informs you now as an aspiring coach. So I don't know what your plans are, but if your first job is maybe in South Africa and your ambitions are maybe to end up one day coaching in Europe, how would you then find that balance? So if you were to coach, say, Polokwane City in South Africa, do you allow for that free-flowing Shibobo style, as you put it, or do you go in and put more structure to that?
I would definitely add a little bit of structure while allowing that freedom. If you look at the South African coaches who've got it right in South Africa and they win numerous accolades all the time, it's because they keep the structure from the back line. They play structured football while allowing plays in certain areas of the park to still keep that South African flair. When teams let players play South African flair any area of the park, that allows for mistakes, in which is when you get the other teams to punish you. So if me as a coach took on Polokwane City, for example, I would definitely keep the structure in play and allow that flair in certain areas of the park, for example, in the attacking third.
But why is it important to keep the flair? And the reason I ask is when we play against other teams in big tournaments, i.e. the World Cup, the flair that we want to keep doesn't seem to take us very far. I mean, the Brazilians do it well, but for us, we always come short because of that flair. So why keep that?
Well, it's what we do as our South Africans. It's what we do as South Africans. It's Brazil tried to, if you look back in the 60s when Pele came into the World Cup for Brazil, just before Pele joined Brazil, there was a coach in Brazil trying to make them play European-style football, which didn't work for them. He had to keep the European-style football with the Brazilian flair. Now, in South Africa, if we can get a couple of players who are physically a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, in South Africa, we don't have the issue with generally playing. We can keep the ball for long periods of play. It's that we lack physical strength. We lack the size sometimes in the park, and we get barreled off the ball, and our flair counts for nothing because we don't have the strength to hold the ball. So for me, I'd maintain the flair. I'd definitely get some structure in play. I'd get the physicality in the football in South Africa, a little bit more physical, a little bit stronger players. And you'll see that flair came in attribute because we have some unbelievable skillful players in this country. But if you look at the guys who've made it overseas, Stephen Pienaar, there's been so many of them. Mark Fish, guys, if you look at the guys who have traded and played and done their thing overseas, they've been strong. Pienaar is not a big lad, but on the ball, that boy's concrete. He's not getting bounced off at all. Sean Botha, big, strong boy. Benny McCarthy, strong on the ball, had the flair. McCarthy scored, I think it was a hat-trick against United. So that South African flair takes these boys a long way, but you also need a footballing brain. It can only take you so far. And that's what we lack in this country. We lack enough footballing brain mixed with that flair to be a formidable force. I mean, you look back to 95 when we won the AFCON. I think we're lying 15th in the world. Why have we gone backwards in 20, 25 years? Yeah. Doesn't make sense at all. I think we're the 6th or 7th richest league in the world money-wise. So why aren't we progressing forward? It's a very simple question which can't be answered.
Yeah, and that's why it's a fair question to ask to someone like you who has not only played, but you've now studied football. I wonder what makes a good coach in your opinion? I mean, people can play football, anyone can pick up a ball and kick it around, but I've always wondered how you transition from that to now management. I'm now thinking of the likes of Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard.
Yeah.
What separates those that just play from those that go on to be great managers?
For me, if you look at great managers, generally managers who are loved by the players. When you get these managers who walk around with the iron fist, the players generally don't like to play for them. The guy's not like in the change room because he leads hectic. He doesn't lead from the front. He demands. And I find in South African football, any football, anywhere in the world, if you get a manager who loves his players, look at Klopp at Liverpool right now. Those boys are running around for that manager because they love him. They respect him. They want to perform for him. And he's got that balance of being respected. They all know he's the boss. They know what he says goes. Yet, he still has respect because he's approachable to talk to. He doesn't judge any of his players. You never hear anyone discussing Klopp in a negative light. Mourinho was that coach for a very, very long time, that manager. And then he seemed to lose it somewhere. He hasn't progressed with the game. He hasn't evolved with the game. And as a manager, you got to constantly evolve with the game. You got to constantly watch trends of football while keeping the players to respect you, while the players still know that you are the boss, so they can't disrespect you in how they speak to you or how they approach you. It's a fine balance. And I find as a manager, if you too iron fist, you lose the dressing room very, very quickly.
Is that how you see yourself? Are you more on the Jurgen Klopp side of things than I see Italian managers? They go to England specifically and they don't seem to last for longer than a season or two. Do you associate more with the Jurgen Klopps of this world?
I like to think so, yes. If you look at my business at the moment with Neil, I'm sort of the approachable owner of the two of us. So I would definitely like to sort of familiar myself with a guy like Jurgen Klopp. That would be my approach to the manager. I wanted the dressing room to respect me. but at the same time, I'd be approachable to all the players and honest. Honesty is important as a manager.
I suppose, keeping a squad of, 20 to 30 people must be a tough job, which is why I suppose you need to go through the training that you have gone through. But maybe let's switch gears, Ryan, and talk a bit about your business. So you're based in Cape Town. You run a gym. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, we're a functional-based gym. So basically by that, what I mean is we are not your conventional sort of Vision Active. We are a functional gym whereby people can train by us as an athlete. Myself and Neil have kept that philosophy of a dressing room whereby the team works as a team. Every trainer that works for us, we're a team. We chat openly, we banter back and forth. And I wanted that dressing room feel in the gym. So anyone that trains by us feels a part of the team. They feel welcome. They're training as an athlete in their own capacity. And that's what we wanted for the gym.
When you say training as an athlete, do you specifically focus on athletes, or is PointBreak open
anyone.
For anyone? Okay.
Open for anyone. By that, I mean, find your inner athlete. That's one of our logos, is find your inner athlete. People, you want to train with purpose. To go to gym is boring. No one will ever tell you training is fun. It's not fun. What makes it fun or at least enjoyable or to tolerate it is that the banter around you with the trainers is fun. You're hitting your goals while being pushed individually according to your specifications. You can't train 11 people the same. And that's what makes a manager in football so important too, is you've got 11 players in the field with different personalities doing different jobs, but all with the same purpose. And that's what PointBreak is. It's training everyone separately with the same purpose of getting them to achieve their goals for them individually, while making them feel like they're an athlete in their own light. You get a guy coming to the gym to want to lose 40 kilos and he can't move. You got to take him to the ranks slowly and progress him slowly into things and still make him feel important enough to achieve his goals.
I really like that a guy comes, he can't move, they want to lose 40 kilos. When I see people that are overweight trying to do their best to lose weight, and you see someone like that running on the street, it's a painful sight. But I suppose you have to appreciate that all of us have to start somewhere. So
100%.
I really like what you're saying, that when you get someone like that, you have to be patient, and over time, it might take a year, 2 years, but that person will eventually get to where they want to go with
100%. If they commit enough to the cause, they will achieve their goals. It's hand in hand. I might see a client 5, 6, 7 hours of the week, and they have a lot of hours by themselves to mess it up. So when you get a guy walking to the gym 40, 50, 60 kilos overweight, let's not forget he's already too heavy for his joints. So you have to start him at a very slow progression. And if he has enough faith in your trainer, which is why to be a trainer is important, you got to buy the trust out of your client. They got to trust that you're there with them hand in hand to take them to the ropes without hurting them. So patience and fitness is a very, very important aspect of anything.
I wonder, as you own the gym, you're a personal trainer, and I walk in and I'm 170 kilograms heavy. I come to you and I say, please make me 70 kilos. That must be a daunting task. Where do you start?
It's daunting for many different reasons. I had a guy walk to the gym who was 227 kilos once. And, there's a lot of health risk attached to that, heart and joints and everything else. So as a trainer, it's extremely daunting. But this guy, my heart went out to me. He'd been to a few trainers who didn't want to train him because it's such a difficult task. And we started the road, and he lost 55 kilos.
Wow.
He eventually lost a friend, so he sort of lost his way a bit, and he's off the training at the moment. But the guy was committed. He had dropped 55 kilos. He had moved the ranks. It took him a year and a bit to drop that weight. So you got to give a person like that credit, because to walk in the gym, first of all, let's not forget, you're incredibly big, and people, unfortunately, out there are very judgmental, So give that guy his dues. He walks in the gym, heavy, overweight, with a bunch of people around him who are incredibly fit and looking the part, a lot of them, and he still walks in to give his best. Hats off to a person like that.
No, I really like that. Most, whether it's books or motivational talks, they always say when you want to achieve anything, the first thing you have to do is to show up. So suppose just to walk into the gym is the first step, because some of us fail to even do that, to wake up, go to the gym and start. So when someone
100%.
makes it to the gym, I suppose you have to give them credit for that.
Take the hat off and you give them their respect, 150%.
Yeah, awesome, Ryan. I'm wondering, as someone who's worked in many different countries, I know you were born and raised in South Africa, but I would also like to think that you could have chosen to live the rest of your life elsewhere. Why did you decide to come back to South Africa, and maybe why Cape Town specifically?
South Africa's home for me, and sort of even when you're traveling the world, you're never too far from South Africa. It's a beautiful country. We're unique in this country. I mean, we've got 11 official languages. Across the board, we are a very mixed race country, and we're making it work. We're doing our thing. So coming home to this country, having my family, having my close friends. Yes, I made many friends around the rest of the world, and you can say to some degree extended family, but it's not South Africa. You South Africa, this is my culture. This is where I'm from. This is where I want to have my roots. I might venture overseas again for work at a later stage, but this will always be home. And coming back to a country whereby people understand what a braai is. It's not a barbecue, it's a braai. It makes you feel warm, So, yeah.
No, it's always interesting to ask that question. Are there people who stay here because they don't have an alternative? This is where they're born and all they know is what they have seen. So I always find that it's interesting to pose that question to someone who's been literally all around the world. But after that journey, you make the decision to return
to come home. Listen, yeah. I've traveled. Stockholm is one of my best cities and favorite cities in the world. But Cape Town is incredible. Durban is beautiful in its own way. Joburg is beautiful in its own way. The Cape Town beauty, I lived in Durban most of my life. I lived in Johannesburg for 6 years. But in Cape Town, I've been here for 8 years, and I still find myself some mornings driving to work and going, wow, the city's incredible.
There's a reason why Cape Town is consistently voted the best city in the world.
You know what I mean? Exactly. Yeah. 100%. So, yeah.
No, lovely. Ryan, as we're about to wrap up, I'm wondering maybe if there are other things you want to say that maybe we didn't get an opportunity to talk about. What would you like our listeners to know maybe about what you do, who you are, maybe South Africa as a whole, just generally as we close off?
Yeah, obviously I'm into fitness and that's what I do. I like my new rush, my new high is having a person walk in the gym who can't do much of what they think they want to do. And then they start achieving it. And you see that the lights in their eyes come alive. It's a nice rush for me. And you realize very quickly how important that is to be at home, because I can relate to my fellow South Africans. Unfortunately, always we're going to have up and downs, and we're still in many ways still quite a young country and certain things we're dealing with. But we persevere. One thing about South Africa, we persevere. We won the World Cup in '95 and no one thought we could do it. We won the AFCON and no one thought we can do it. People have fled this country thinking when the government changed, we're going to leave, the country's going to go going down the toilets. We still, trudging on, trying to make it work, and people are coming back again. So one thing about South Africans, we're a resilient country, 150%. We don't give up very easily, and that part stemmed through me as a person as well, which is why when I was told I couldn't do things as a footballer, I couldn't do that as to walk again. I did all of that because it's who I am. I'm South African, and we fight for what we want.
I really like that, and it's such a beautiful place to end the conversation. We fight for what we want. We are South African, and by extension, we are African. And as I'm saying that, I'm thinking back to last Saturday watching Eliud Kipchoge being the first man to run a full marathon in under 2 hours. As a gym person, what's your view on that?
You got to take hats off to a guy like that to run a full marathon under 2 hours when people thought that would never, ever be done. Do you know what that man's body went through? Do you have any idea the physical and mental strain that he went through to do that? So the fact he's African says volumes for the continent we live on, and it speaks volumes for us as people. And just watch the space. There's a lot more to come.
This morning I went for a 5-kilometer run, and I was running at, on average, sort of 4 minutes, 30 seconds per kilometer.
Which is quite quick, by the way.
Yeah, but I thought back to Eliud Kipchoge's time, and they were doing 2 minutes, 50 seconds, 422 times, over 42 kilometers.
How
and I couldn't do that for 5 kilometers, not even 1 kilometer.
No, it's crazy. Hats off, that's amazing. It's incredible.
Yeah. Anyway, Ryan, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank
you for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. But I finally understand why you've got such a huge fan base, whether it's the soccer fans or this group of ladies who seem to think that you are not only the David Beckham of South Africa, but perhaps the Ryan Botha of this world. It's been such a pleasure getting to understand the person that you are, your views on gym, football, life in general. This has really been a blast for me, so thank you.
Thank you so much, too. I really, really appreciate it.
1000 African Voices.
You've been listening to 1000 African Voices. Please join us next time as we bring you yet another African voice. 1000 African Voices is produced by Aburengwi C. Sam Ganich is our sound engineer, with our head researcher Jones Maleka. The intro soundtrack for the show is by the legendary Salif Gator from his 1995 album Forlorn. The song you're listening to right now is by Chronix, and the title of the song is Legend. For more information, including the contact details of our guests, please visit us on our website www.1000africanvoices.com. You can also subscribe to our show on iTunes by searching for 1000 African Voices. We are also available on Stitcher. You can find us as well on Podbean. The only thing we ask of you is that you subscribe to our show by logging on to 1000africanvoices.com and click the subscribe button. That helps us grow. It helps us keep producing and bringing to you more African voices. Until next time, Kungana Africa, and take care.
Being an ordinary person doing what's right. Yesterday at the football game, a little girl asked me my name. She said, "Sir, I've seen you before, tell me who are you?" I said, "I am a legend that you never heard of before." I said, "I am a lion, but you never heard me roar. I am a hero that nobody celebrates. But if one person remembers my name, that means on the ocean of fame I'm an unknown sailor. I'm the percussionist playing with the whalers, the one with the shaker, the mover and shaker. My name wasn't on the front of the paper, but me not cater. Much more than the worker is greater. Creation glorifies creator. So all deeds done are in the name of my maker. I am a legend that you probably never hear about. Words from the lion's mouth. I am a hero that nobody celebrates. But if one person remembers my name, give praise, that means I made a change. Story of my life, ordinary person just like you. If you take a look inside, you see the great things that people do. We're out here changing lives day and night, day in, day out. BBC don't show it, CNN don't show it.